People joked that we'd get the next World War before we got Grand Theft Auto 6, that the moon would collapse, that Half-Life 3 would drop first, that entire civilizations would rise and fall in the time it took Rockstar to push out the next game. We got a pandemic before GTA 6. We got Queen Elizabeth's funeral before GTA 6. We got flying cars, alien footage, and an AI that writes your resume before GTA 6. The memes were endless, the punchlines predictable, but the reality underneath it all, the years and years of silence, only fed the fire. Because this wasn't just another sequel. This was the game, the next installment of the most iconic open-world franchise in history, the crown jewel of the medium, and it never came. I was 11 when GTA 5 launched. My brother snuck the disc into our old PS3, and we passed the controller back and forth like it was a live grenade. I remember the loading screen, how long it took, the slow humming music, the way Los Santos emerged out of blackness like a planet being born. Now I'm 26, and the sequel still hasn't launched. Except, I've played it, kind of. Not the version the world's been begging for. Not the version that'll be in stores if it ever gets that far. No, I played something else. A build I wasn't supposed to see. A version that exists in whispers and encrypted drives and hallways where the lights buzz just a little too loud. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I just finished a Q&A contract for a mobile studio that churned out idle RPGs with slot machine mechanics. I got a random call from an Arizona number. The guy on the other end didn't say where he was calling from, just that there was an opportunity. Top secret project. You'll be embedded on site, high pay, full NDA. Bring your own mouse. That was it. I signed the NDA before they sent me the location. 32 pages of legal jargon in dense font. Clauses about intellectual property, non-disclosure, non-compete, non-defamation, and a weird one about testing protocol consistency under long-form isolation parameters. I was assigned to something called Branch Facility L-3. It wasn't in a city. It was 2 hours outside of Reno, past a dead strip of highway, hidden behind a rusted storage depot and a sign that read, Wasteland Furniture, closed forever. Real subtle. The facility was gray and windowless, with 2 security doors and a keypad that didn't beep when you touched it. I was greeted by a man with no name tag, just a laminated badge that said number 14. He wore a zip-up hoodie with the zipper halfway broken and talked like he was late to something more important. You're number 52 now, he said, handing me my own badge. You'll be working on build line C under isolated run conditions. Do not sync to network. Do not record footage. Do not discuss anything you encounter, even with me. We passed through a corridor that smelled like old carpet and metal polish. The Q&A floor was a series of cubes, each with 3 monitors, no windows, no clocks, and gray soundproofing panels on the walls. No one spoke. Test windows are 10 hours. Lunch is optional. Log anomalies via the internal report queue, but do not tag me. Someone will read them, probably. I sat at my assigned station, Cube 11. No welcome packet, no documentation, just a black desktop tower and a sticker that said KODEV 10.91 internal.rc. No launch icon. No shortcut. You had to open the install directory manually, run a console prompt and wait. No splash screen, no music, just a flicker, and then you were in. It was GTA 6. Even from the opening second I knew. There was no branding, no Rockstar logo, but it was unmistakable. The world came into focus with a roar of surf and seagulls, and I was standing on a beach in full third-person mode, waves washing over the sand. The water was real. I don't mean good graphics. I mean real. The way it surged, the way it pulled back and soaked the sand. It felt like the tide tables were being rendered by satellite feed. The city's skyline shimmered in the distance. A curved coastal highway arched above me. Palms swayed. Neon signs blinked against the glass of high-rise buildings. There was no objective, no minimap, just a character in jeans and a windbreaker, barefoot, facing the ocean. I started walking. The controls were familiar, tight and snappy. Same feel as GTA 5 but smoother, more tactile. When I moved past a tourist in a bikini holding a drink, she turned to look at me, blinked twice and whispered something I couldn't hear. When I got closer, she said it again, louder, "Don't stop walking." I tried to talk to her, but no button worked. I turned around and she was gone. No footsteps, no fading. I figured it was a bug. Probably just AI behavior overlapping voice triggers. That's why I was here, right? To test this stuff. But that moment stayed in the back of my mind. Because the more I played, the more I realized there wasn't a menu, no pause screen, no map overlay, no save function. I alt-tabbed and wrote that down. Build lacks UI.
Possibly disabled?
Voice triggers firing too early. Character said, "Don't stop walking. Need clarification from dialogue team." Then I kept moving. The city, called Leonida in some of the asset names, was massive, bigger than anything in GTA 5, sprawling, alive. Neighborhoods with working traffic patterns, pedestrians carrying groceries, police helicopters hovering near the skyline. Trains moved on time. I watched one arrive at a station, unload commuters, and continue down the track. Everything had weight. The buses swayed at stoplights. Trees shed individual leaves. Street vendors counted money and packed up tables. A man threw a half-eaten hot dog at a squirrel, and all of it felt a little too real. Like it didn't want to be seen, like it resented being measured. When I marked a texture seam near a bowling alley, the next time I returned there, the building was gone. Completely. Like it had been paved over. I marked that too. Asset bowling, 402 mid-zone missing after reload. Was present in earlier session. No one responded. I kept playing. Around hour 3, I noticed something weird. Certain blocks felt empty, not underpopulated, dead. Streets where pedestrians didn't spawn, shops that didn't light up, buildings with doors but no signs, like blank placeholders. I walked down one such alley off a street called Atlantic Grove. The light here was flat, dim. As I turned the corner, I saw a mannequin standing beside a dumpster. Not a person, a mannequin, untextured. Its head was tilted slightly upward, hands bent unnaturally at the wrists, like it had been dropped there. It didn't move. I walked past it, turned the corner again, and there was another, same model, slightly different pose. I went back to the first alley, empty now, no mannequin. I wrote the report. Untextured mannequin asset appears inconsistently in dead zones, not interactable, behavior unclear, still no reply. At hour 7, I tried to enter a pawn shop labeled Everyday Cash on 6th and Palmetto. The door opened, the bell rang, but the interior was just a gray box with placeholder textures. On the far wall was a blinking red exit sign that said, "Return when done." I walked through it and ended up in a barber shop halfway across town. That wasn't how the fast travel system was supposed to work. Or maybe there wasn't one. Maybe I wasn't supposed to get that far yet. Maybe this whole build was just for stress testing and I was off script. By the 9th hour, I'd filled the internal log with over 80 entries. Most were minor, AI stutters, animation bugs, missing lighting and tunnels. But some weren't bugs. They were decisions. Like the silent street where no cars entered unless I turned around and looked away. Like the old man in a trench coat who waited at the same bench no matter where I spawned. Like the subtle buzzing sound that came through the character's phone when I stood still too long. I tried to report it as audio distortion. The log tool closed automatically, wouldn't reopen. At hour 10, number 14 walked past my cube and tapped the desk. "That's enough for your first day." He didn't ask how it went, didn't check my reports. "Keep your badge, you'll need it tomorrow." I stood, stiff and exhausted, and followed him down the carpeted hallway to the exit. As I passed the lockers, I noticed mine had a sticky note taped to the inside wall. The others didn't. It read, "Don't spawn near building B12 at night. The next morning, the building looked the same. Concrete, featureless, still pretending to be a dead furniture outlet. I parked in the same spot. No windows. No security camera that I could see. When I held my badge to the scanner, it buzzed once and let me in. Inside, the air felt colder, or maybe I was just more alert. I passed the same blank hallway, past a girl I hadn't seen yesterday sitting 2 desks down. She was tapping her keyboard rhythmically, never looking up. Her monitor displayed only a log file, no game window. Number 14 met me at my cube without a word, just nodded, then walked off, leaving a clipboard on the edge of my desk. It had a sticky note that read, "Build updated overnight. Recompile assets in Sector 3. There were no other instructions. The PC was already on. Same build folder. Same prompt line. No version number had changed, but the file timestamp was now 3:17 a.m. I launched the game. No logo, no menu, just the beach again. Same barefoot protagonist. Same coastal wind. This time the surf was calmer, the horizon more visible. The camera started closer to the water before drifting back to reveal the city behind me. The skyline had changed. One of the taller buildings was gone, replaced with a construction site. A crane stretched crooked across the fog. The reflection on the wet sand was still perfect. I started walking toward the boardwalk, but my movement felt slower. Not laggy, just weightier. Like the sand had been tweaked to realistically slow down footfall. Maybe a physics update? Hard to say. The boardwalk itself was empty. No pedestrians, no noise. I flagged that in the log. Pedestrian traffic not populating on spawn. Reproducible across 3 loads. Possible AI paving error? As I moved through the city, the layout felt familiar. Broad avenues, sun-bleached signs, pastel murals on the sides of buildings. But there were gaps, literal ones. 3 blocks into the main strip, I walked past a bar with no door. Just an outline, like the devs had placed a building shell but hadn't textured the entrance. When I looked through the glass window, there were tables, chairs, and a bartender NPC in place, frozen mid-action, holding a bottle in the air. No animation, like he was on pause. I tried to enter, but the physics barrier blocked me. Behind the bartender, in the mirror, no, not a mirror, a flat silver texture. There were more NPCs, all frozen, unmoving, just silhouettes. It wasn't even rendered with full lighting, no shadows, no shading passes. I flagged it. Asset bar. 103 appears complete externally but inaccessible. Interior props appear in freeze frame idle. Possibly test state left active? I backed out of the alley and turned onto a road labeled Ellicott Drive. There too, something was off. This street didn't exist yesterday, or if it did, it wasn't here. It sloped downward unnaturally, like a sinkhole had pulled it into the terrain. The curb clipping was obvious. Cars didn't spawn. There were no pedestrians. But at the end of the road was a mailbox, floating 2 feet off the ground. When I got closer, I realized it wasn't a mailbox. It was a gray cube with placeholder text. Insert object here. No dev marker, no ID number. I opened the console and attempted to select it. No response. I fired off another report. Ellicott Drive populates inconsistently. Floating asset cube present. Lacks ID string. Unable to inspect or trigger interaction. After submitting, the log interface closed. When I tried reopening it, it flickered and minimized itself. I checked the taskbar. No record of the log process running. I alt-tabbed, froze for a moment. On the desktop, a new file. Not in the bug tracking app. On the actual desktop outside the game. Notes _from yesterday.txt. I hadn't created that. I opened it. Inside were 6 lines, all quotes, all from yesterday's bug reports, but they were phrased differently. The bowling alley is gone now. Someone replaced the street vendor with a blank model. The mannequins are moving when not observed. I forgot which road I entered from. Don't stop walking. Don't stop walking. That last line repeated twice. Same capitalization, same period, same formatting. I deleted the file immediately, opened the bug tracker again. It reopened normally. I logged a new note. Text file appeared outside of testing environment. Possibly residual logging tool active. Contains paraphrased entries. Behavior undocumented. As I walked through the city's East District, I noticed a stretch of shops that hadn't been populated. Billboards were blank. The road texture repeated awkwardly every 6 meters. Garbage bins had no collision, but down a narrow service alley, a back way between a diner and a gym, I spotted something I hadn't seen before. A green awning over a steel door. No sign, no logo, just a single flickering wall light above it. I approached. The prompt read, "Press E to enter." I hesitated. This wasn't standard. No mission had been triggered. No NPC had led me here. I pressed E. The loading screen was instant. I was inside what looked like an apartment. Sparse, low-resolution textures, cheap lighting, a table, a bed, a single standing lamp in the corner. On the wall, 3 framed pictures, all the same. An empty city intersection at dusk. The buildings were low poly. No pedestrians, no cars. Just one detail repeated across the 3 images. A man standing on the sidewalk, not moving. His figure was blurred in each one, more a silhouette than a model. I tried to inspect them. No prompt appeared. I backed out. Outside, the city was different. Same location, same street. But the pedestrians were new. Different faces, different clothes. I noticed one detail immediately. Every 3rd NPC was wearing the same hoodie. Gray, untextured, with faint red print on the back. I followed one, turned the camera to see the text. It read, "Still loading." I flagged it. Pedestrian clothing repeating on interval. Texture includes dev style debug message. Possibly unfiltered test asset? After that, I wandered back to Ellicott Drive, but it wasn't there anymore. That whole part of the map was now a park, a paved walking path, a garden fence, families and joggers, no sign of the sinking road or the floating placeholder cube. I ran a location check via the debug overlay. The coordinates were the same. Ellicott Drive had reloaded as something else. I shut the game down, took a break, tried to reset my brain. When I booted it back up, I spawned in the same park, but the textures were different again. This time the benches were gone, the bushes replaced with construction tape. A warning sign sat in the center of the walking path. It read, "Map error, please report to admin." I turned around and walked the opposite direction, back toward the shopping district. There, outside the pawn shop with no door, stood a mannequin. Not untextured this time. Rendered, painted, but wrong. Its hands were twisted inward like bent wire. The legs were pigeon-toed. The face was smooth, eyeless. It stood in a slightly slouched posture, as if mid-collapse. It wasn't moving, but I knew it hadn't been there before. When I turned the camera away and looked back, it was gone. I ran a search through the game directory for mannequin and pawn shop. No hits. I looked in the logs, empty. When I checked the debug overlay, I noticed something strange. My FPS was normal, solid 60. Ping was 0, but my observer count had increased from 1 to 2. Observer count? That wasn't a standard variable. I tried to highlight it. The overlay blinked and removed the field. Gone. I exited the game. The bug report tool wouldn't open. And now, on the Windows taskbar, a new process had started. Observer_tracker_06.exe. I hovered over it. No tooltip. No way to close it. I checked my session time, 9:58:12. 2 minutes left in the work window. I opened a blank notepad and started typing a summary of what I saw, planning to print it and keep it with me. As I typed, the words disappeared one by one. They deleted themselves. No key press, just backspaced on their own. Then a single line replaced what I had written. "You've already seen this street." The power flickered. I sat back, unsure if I should shut down or keep going. Number 14 appeared behind me. "Day 2, he said. You're acclimating. He tapped my monitor. Recompile assets again in Sector 3 tomorrow. And don't log anything about the mannequins. That's not part of your build. He walked away without another word. The next morning, before I even touched the mouse, I noticed something had changed. The build folder, dev 0.91 internal.rc, now, had a subdirectory I hadn't seen before. It was named modules, all lowercase, with a modified timestamp from 2:49 a.m. Inside it were a dozen .poc files and one text document labeled obsv_mapnotes.txt. I opened the text file, nothing fancy, no formatting, just a short list. Building B12, do not spawn here after 22. Behavior becomes erratic. Ellicott Drive, Sector 3 anomaly. Confirmed. Appears only when log tool is open. Pawn shop interior. Mannequins are not part of standard asset list. Do not flag. Each line ended with a tag, T04. No name. Just that. T04. Tester 04? I checked the Q&A roster in the onboarding binder I'd photocopied before it was taken. There was no Tester 04 listed. Not on paper, not in the internal directory. The numbers jumped from number 03 to number 06, which meant one of two things: number 04 had been removed or buried. The document wasn't in the bug tracker. It wasn't even in the build notes. It had been slipped in manually, something I would have never seen unless I dug for it. I opened the first asset module and began combing through code, something testers weren't supposed to do. Normally I'd get a slap on the wrist if someone caught me poking around the scripting layer, but no one was watching. The file was named pedsim.behavior.mq.poc. Deep inside one of the comment threads, I found this. Pedestrian will halt if observed for 60+ seconds from fixed angle. This loop is unresolved. T04 filed report but was denied merge. Workaround. Trigger random idle event to break stair logic. Again, T04. Whoever they were, they'd been here before me, and they'd seen the same things, the same bugs, the same rules. But where were their reports? Why had they been denied merge? That wasn't standard practice. If a tester filed a legitimate bug, it got logged, even if the devs ignored it. You didn't just erase the evidence, unless someone wanted it gone. I scrolled deeper and found a string of commented out audio triggers tied to pedestrian behavior. Event, you're not the first. Event, watch your time. Event, he comes out near building B12. Disabled after build 0.87, flagged by admin override. I copied those into a sticky note on my desktop, went back to the game, launched it. The city spawned in again, this time from the northern commuter district. A wide boulevard flanked by hotels and highway on ramps. Bright morning sun. Traffic humming in the background. No pedestrians. For the first 5 minutes, the streets were completely empty. I flagged it in the log. No P-Ed spawned in commuter north. Time, 8:13:09. Possible AI behavior stall. As soon as I hit submit, a flood of NPCs suddenly populated the sidewalks. All at once. Dozens of them, like they'd been waiting. That was the first time I felt it, that I was the variable, that the build wasn't static, that it was watching for my input before finalizing the environment. As I moved through the district, I kept my character idle under a highway sign, and after about 60 seconds I heard it, a low rhythmic breathing, not ambient, not from the game's usual cityscape mix. It was under the audio layer, deep, wet, measured. I spun the camera around. Nothing. NPCs passed. Cars moved. But the breathing didn't stop. It only paused when I moved again. I repeated the test in a different part of the city, by the docks. Same result, 60 seconds idle. Same sound. It wasn't positional. It was reactive. I logged it. Audio anomaly. Low frequency breathing loop under idle condition. Repeats only when camera is stationary for 60s+, not tied to location. The report refused to send. I tried again. No response. I alt-tabbed the bug tracker, still open, but the report was gone, replaced with a single error line. Tester 04, duplicate memory node detected. Resolve immediately. I clicked into it. The entry vanished. I copied the screen and printed it at the network copier down the hall. Number 14 passed me by as I returned. He glanced at the paper. "You don't need that. It's a bug." "No," he said. "It's deprecated. The system self-adjusts." "What happened to Tester 04? He paused for a second too long. "Then, do your job. You're not part of change control." Back at my desk, I ran another search through the modules, this time for B12. I got 2 hits. One in a nav mesh override script. Do not allow fast travel spawn near B12 after 22. Overrides AI behavior and weather flags. See incident log. Test 04_B12night.mkv. And another inside a weather event trigger. Rain triggers at B12 even when condition equal to clear. Audio event, low breath loop. Disable if user logged in. That was it. No context, no links. But someone, TO4, had encountered this, had documented it, had tried to warn whoever came next. The fact that they were missing from every file index meant it had all been deliberately stripped. I made a list in my notepad. Building B12, 10 p.m. trigger. He comes out. Weather override, breathing sound, duplicate memory node, T04 redacted. I had questions, but none of them could be answered without actually testing B12 myself. So I loaded into the build again. Waited until 21:45 in-game, then set a waypoint to a road labeled Morrison LN. The minimap showed B12 in the corner, unlabeled, but there. It was a plain tan brick office building, 4 stories, rows of dark windows, a lobby with an ATM, a reception desk, and flickering fluorescent lights. At 21:59, I stepped through the glass door. The screen stuttered, then everything reloaded, same location, but now it was raining. No transition, just instant precipitation. I checked the debug overlay. The weather flag still read clear. Inside the lobby, the receptionist NPC was gone. All the lights were off. A flashlight HUD flickered on. That had never happened before. I tried to move the character out the front door. It was locked. I was trapped. The breathing started again, not from the speakers. From behind my headset, I yanked it off, still breathing. It was coming from the game window itself, the screen itself. I closed the game, immediately reopened it. Spawned back in the same lobby, same time, 22:03, same weather, still locked in. I alt-tabbed. A new file had appeared in the game directory, test 04_B12night.mkv. I opened it. It was screen capture footage, grainy and unedited, from inside the same lobby, the same angle I had just seen, but the character on screen wasn't mine. He was standing motionless, facing the back hallway. The breathing was louder now. Then the camera started to pan, slow, inhumanly slow, toward a window at the end of the hall. And outside that window, a figure, standing in the rain, wearing what looked like a janitor's uniform, unmoving, just standing there. The video ended. I tried to delete the file. Access denied. I tried copying it to an external drive. System froze. I ran a checksum, just out of instinct. The file was still being written to, even though it was a recording. It was logging me, updating, adjusting. The screen began to flicker. A single word appeared over the frozen frame. Remember. I powered off the machine, sat back in the chair, then noticed something. My laminated badge, number 52, was missing from my lanyard. In its place was a new one. No number, just a name, T04. I didn't say anything to number 14 when I showed up the next day. Just swiped in, walked to my desk, and started the system up. The boot time took longer than usual. Instead of jumping straight into the desktop, the screen flashed a terminal window with raw code, scrolling fast enough to blur. One line stood out before it vanished. Session, T04 status, inherited. I wrote it down on a sticky note and buried it in the back of the drawer. If they were watching me, I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me react. The desktop loaded. No visible changes, no new builds, no asset push, no module warnings. But something subtle had shifted. The mouse lagged a half-second behind my movements. The text on the folder sharpened a little too crisply, like someone had pushed the contrast just over a threshold. I launched the log queue to review my previous entries. Half were missing, gone. No record of the Ellicott Drive behavior, the mannequins, or the B12 incident. The only remaining entries were cosmetic bugs, clipping issues, minor pathing errors, and one note about a floating soda can. All the others, especially anything referencing AI behavior or pedestrian anomalies, had been scrubbed. I checked the log's file modification history. The timestamp showed activity between 3 and 3:07 a.m. while I was asleep. While the system was supposed to be offline, there was no user attribution, just a blank modifier field. No one touched those files, at least no one with a name. That's when I decided to go digging, properly. During my lunch hour, instead of eating, I walked down the hall to HR. I'd only been there once before to fill out payroll forms. This time I walked in and asked a simple question. I'd like to request a directory of former testers for build line C, just for bug attribution purposes. The woman behind the desk looked up slowly. She wore a visitor's badge, not a staff one. Her screen showed a login page she hadn't completed. "I'm sorry," she said. "That information is restricted." "Restricted to who?" She blinked. "Once. There's no directory." "You mean it doesn't exist?" "I mean it's not available anymore." "Why not?" She looked past me, toward the hallway. "I need to step out for a moment." She stood and walked into a back room, didn't return. I left before someone else could appear. Back at my desk, I opened the game directory again and searched for keyword tags in the build's temp logs. I knew devs sometimes left commented out usernames when working on shared files. It was bad practice, but common. So I searched for user, tester, and Q&A yet. The first few results were nothing, generic admin accounts. Then I found a group of archived entries stored in a backup folder titled Archive Logs.Legacy Data 20. Inside, 6 old report files from an earlier iteration of the build, long before 0.91. Each was a plain text file timestamped between February and June 2020. I opened the first one. It was titled log_tester03.txt. The report inside read like mine, almost identical structure. Pedestrian spawned on rooftop, remained motionless for 6 minutes, appeared to follow camera position but no AI assigned. Behavior logged under event.untagged. 51. Note, reloading checkpoint did not remove model. Appears to persist across sessions. At the bottom of the report, a handwritten note added as a second block of text, not system generated. He keeps coming back. I flagged it twice and they zeroed my log. Watch the rooftops after 1 mm. I checked the metadata. The file had last been modified by someone named Carmen. I ran that name through the employee database. No matches. I checked LinkedIn, Reddit, Twitter, found a single result, Carmen Delaney, gameplay tester at a major Q&A firm until mid-2021. Then, nothing. No posts, no tweets, no exit announcement, like she vanished. I opened the next report, log_tester05.txt. AI behavior escalates in response to player gaze duration. Mannequin asset 4 Talt North triggers when observed from static camera for 12 OHS. Audio loop initiates. Possible undocumented idle surveillance system? There was a note appended in red text at the bottom. It read, Tester 05 marked inactive. Do not duplicate report. Close thread. That phrase, marked inactive, appeared across all 6 legacy logs. Tester 01 through Tester 06. My chest tightened. I wrote a list of their tags. usernames, behavior patterns, the bugs they'd flagged. They'd all seen the same things I had, some even earlier, but none of their logs had made it into the current tracker. They'd been hidden, sealed away, buried under nested folders and forgotten directories. Not overwritten, intentionally concealed. I copied them to a USB, marked the drive as audio reference archive in case someone glanced at it. I slid it into my backpack and sat back in my chair, staring at the monitors. That's when the first video appeared. No prompt, no system action. Just a new window that faded in slowly, the way a paused movie might resume after you unmute the screen. It was a video file, grainy, compressed, flickering with interlaced static. It had no name, no title, just started playing. In it, gameplay footage from the build, but not from my session. Different character model, different spawn point. I watched as the player walked down a street I didn't recognize, some older part of the map. Brick alleys, rusted fire escapes, no minimap, no compass. The camera panned slowly. The character entered a side street with no lights, then turned left into an alley. No music, no ambient noise, just footsteps. Then the character stopped, stared at something off screen. The video glitched. When the footage returned, the alley was empty. The character was gone. The video ended. 5 seconds of static, then black. Another video launched automatically. Same format. Another player character. This time, a woman. She crossed a traffic median and stepped into a gas station. The lights inside flickered. A lone NPC behind the counter didn't move. The player walked behind the register. Another glitch. When the screen stabilized, the NPC was gone, and so was the player. Only the sound of wind remained. I hit escape. Nothing happened. Alt F4 didn't work either. I Alt-tabbed. Couldn't find the process name. No player listed. No app running. Just the video feed. The third video began. This time it was me. From earlier that day, walking toward building B12. Except the character didn't follow the same path I remembered. He stopped in the lobby, then turned around, faced the camera. His eyes weren't focused, his face was neutral, and then he blinked. The screen tore, an audio distortion crackled through the speakers, low, gurgling, then silence. The video looped to black. A line of text appeared. Recovered build notes, status, incomplete. Inactive nodes will not return. I reached for the log tool, tried to type a message, but the keys wouldn't respond. The screen dimmed slightly. Another file appeared on the desktop, recovered_notes_final.rtf. Inside were 6 paragraphs, each one describing a disappearance. Not of NPCs, of testers. The first was Carmen Delaney, then Tester02, whose real name wasn't listed, then Mike G, then T04, reassigned to static node memory, then number 19, then someone called Ridge. Each entry ended with a status line, inactive. Build continues. I unplugged the USB, tried to shut the PC down. It didn't respond, so I reached under the desk and pulled the plug from the power supply. The screen died instantly. No shutdown process, no warnings, just black. Then I saw it, reflected in the black monitor, faintly, like a burn-in or after image. A face, not mine, watching from over my shoulder, mouth slightly open, eyes fixed, no blinking. When I turned around, no one there. The log tool rebooted on its own when I restarted. All my notes were gone, replaced with one line. This session is now yours. Do not go into the alleys. I stopped reporting things after that. There was no point. Every log I filed was erased or overwritten. Every video I recorded vanished from the folder by the next morning. Even screen captures blinked out of existence as soon as I saved them, like the system knew what I was trying to do before I did it. So I started watching instead, not playing, not testing, just watching. It started small, an AI model on a moped that passed my character twice within 30 seconds, going opposite directions. A child NPC that stood at a crosswalk for 20 minutes never moving, blinking, or making a sound, and a car that stopped in the middle of an empty highway. No traffic, no light, no intersection. It just sat there, engine idling. I moved my character toward it. The driver stared straight ahead, not blinking, not moving, hands locked to the wheel. When I stepped in front of the hood, the headlights flicked off. Not gradually, just a sudden cut to black. I circled the car. There was no license plate. The brake lights were always on, even when the car wasn't moving. I walked around it twice. The driver never looked at me, not once. But as I turned to walk away, my controller rumbled, my character stopped, and the engine revved once, short and sharp, then cut off entirely. The car disappeared from the map without a trace. No poof, no render cull, just gone. I didn't log it. That night I made a private list, not in the system. On paper, folded inside my jacket pocket, something that couldn't be erased with a key command. I called it Anomalous Zones Suspected Alive. 5th and Dalhurst, pedestrian duplication at 17 daily. Vista Del Rey Station, stroller NPC never leaves platform. Cypress Tunnel, ambient noise disappears after 1 minute idle. South Clinton Alley, trash can lid twitches every 30 seconds. Spruce and Dover, same blue truck idles near fire hydrant every morning. Driver's hands never move. Ellicott Park, no birds, ever. It wasn't the zones themselves that felt strange. It was the way they reacted, as if they knew when they were being tested. Like observation triggered something hidden beneath the scripting. It made me think of those early reports, T-04's comments, the idle surveillance flag, the breathing sound that only played when the player stood still too long. Maybe it wasn't a bug. Maybe it was a mechanic that was never meant to be seen. Or worse, maybe it was just for us, the testers. A kind of built-in reaction system that gauged how long you could notice something before you broke. Day 15. That's when I met Dennis. It was dusk in-game. My character had just exited a mission stub that wasn't properly rigged, something about stealing a trailer from a shipping yard. The moment I stepped out of the mission zone, the sun dropped like a rock. 1 second golden hour, the next full nightfall, and he was standing there, leaning against a streetlight on the corner of Hayes and 9th. Bald, late 40s maybe, wearing a windbreaker, jeans, and a pair of aviator sunglasses. I thought he was just another NPC until he spoke. Not a subtitle line, not a voiceover trigger. He turned toward me, fully faced the character, and said, very clearly, "You're not the first." I froze. I hadn't touched the controller. He walked past me slowly, brushing the character's shoulder, then paused. Without turning around, he added, "They always think they're alone until the lights change." And then he walked into the alley behind a closed bakery and didn't come out. I ran after him. Nothing. Just a locked gate. No nav mesh beyond it. No access point. I pulled up the asset overlay and selected the nearby NPC list. Dennis wasn't there. No model ID. No render flags. No history in the pedestrian pool. He simply didn't exist. I checked the dev folders later that night. Searched for Dennis, Windbreaker, and Aviator. Nothing. No texture, no skeleton rig, no animation files. I started watching for him in each session, and every time dusk fell, he returned. Different street, different pose, but always there and always saying something new. You should stop logging after the third one disappears. He left the lights on in the hallway, but no one ever came back. There's a version of you that never booted the game. I wrote them all down. Never in the same voice, never in the same tone. Sometimes he sounded like he was warning me. Other times, like he was rehearsing lines from a script he'd forgotten. Day 16. I paused the game to get up and stretch. When I came back, the game window was frozen, still on the pause screen. But something caught my eye in the reflection of the window behind it. In the darkness of my monitor's bezel, just inside the glass, a figure. Standing behind the pause character model, just far enough back to stay in the fog render, motionless. I minimized the game. The desktop returned. But inside the game window's preview on the taskbar, the figure was still there, same position, unmoving. I restored the window. The figure was gone. Dennis had to be, but the way he appeared even when the game was paused, it wasn't a standard asset. He wasn't governed by draw distance or player action. He was watching me now. I checked the room, empty. I clicked around my real desktop, my files, my logs, my test build folders, then noticed a small change. The game window wasn't called GTA 6.exe anymore. It was now labeled Session Dennis 06.active. I never changed that. I never renamed anything. I tried checking the executable properties. Under author, it just said, not first. I ended the task immediately. Tried to relaunch the normal build. It refused to open. A pop-up blocked the screen. You already met him. The only option was OK. I pressed it. The desktop returned. No game window, no error message, just silence, until I noticed the background. My wallpaper had changed. I hadn't used a custom background. It was always the default black. Now it was a screenshot, the alley behind the bakery, where Dennis had vanished. Same lighting, same angle, but now someone else was in the frame, me, or at least my character model, standing at the mouth of the alley, facing the dark. I pulled the USB back up from my locker and loaded it onto a second test rig on the far end of the lab. I launched the same build and loaded the last known safe point before dusk. I ran straight to the alley. Nothing. No Dennis. No figure. Just pigeons and ambient sound. I checked the folder. The background image was still there, but now the timestamp was different, modified 3 minutes ago. I ran an EXIF data check. Camera make NA. Device NA coordinates present. It listed a real-world location, latitude and longitude. I plugged it into Google Maps. It pointed to the test facility, specifically the Q&A floor, right where my cube was, where I was sitting right now. I powered everything down, logged out, left, didn't clock out, didn't speak to anyone. But that night, as I walked back into my apartment, my monitor flicked on by itself, just a black screen. Then a message appeared. Next dusk, don't look away. When I logged in the next morning, there was an update. The update didn't ask. It was just there. Patch 6066. No changelog, no notification. Just silently installed sometime after 3 a.m., according to the timestamp. I didn't authorize it. The build I was supposed to test was 0.91 billions. Locked, approved, reviewed. But now the launch icon had a red dot in the corner and a tooltip that read, Patch level 6.66, compliance mandatory. I booted it anyway. I wasn't given much choice. There were no splash screens, no company logos. The load times were longer than usual. 3 minutes of a black screen with only a faint loading spinner in the bottom corner. No music. When the map finally opened, I was standing somewhere new. It wasn't on the GPS. There were no waypoints, no HUD, just a rusty welcome sign barely legible under digital grime. Welcome to Old Town. Even the font was different, something older, chunkier, like it hadn't been used since the PS3 days. I tried opening the minimap. It glitched, then refused to load. Only the word unmapped flickered in the upper left corner. The entire area looked wrong. Low-res textures, flickering shadows, trees that swayed without wind, buildings with seams too sharp, geometry too jagged. It was like stepping into an alpha version of the game, or maybe a discarded prototype someone forgot to delete. But it was huge. Rows of warehouses, vintage cars that didn't belong in the main city, and a hazy orange sky that never seemed to move. It reminded me of the first time I saw San Andreas, but stripped down, rough, haunted by its own limitations. No ambient music, no radio, no pedestrians. I walked 2 blocks before I saw movement. A woman, mid-40s, in an old supermarket apron. She walked across the street, didn't look at me, and disappeared into a building with no door. I followed. The building wasn't on any previous map zone, just a faded sign above the entrance, testing floor. As soon as I stepped inside, the entire environment changed. Fluorescent ceiling lights, cubicles, whiteboards covered in post-it notes. It looked like my office, not just in theme, but layout. Row for row, desk for desk. I walked to the third row and turned left. There it was, my cube. Same monitor setup, same dented chair. Even the mug I'd brought from home with a chip on the rim. I tried interacting. Nothing responded. The phone on the desk didn't dial. The monitors were powered off. The drawers didn't open. I turned to the next cubicle. Inside was an NPC, male 30s, dressed in business casual. He sat completely still, staring at a blank screen. His name tag read TT03 active. I backed away. Another cubicle, different figure, female model, hair in a bun, no facial animation. Her tag read T-01 inactive. Each cubicle had one. Some read active, some inactive. A few had no label at all. I circled to the break room. An NPC stood by the fridge holding a plastic sandwich bag, arm frozen in mid-reach. His tag read T06, reassigned. One of the names matched an old log I'd seen. Carmen D. She stood at a whiteboard, pointing at nothing. Her hand hovered inches above a marker that never moved. Tag T04, watch. I tried interacting with her. The model didn't respond, but her head rotated slightly as I walked behind her. Just a few degrees. No animation. Just a snap, like someone moving a rig manually in a modeling tool. I left the break room. Near the far back corner of the virtual Q&A floor, there was a set of glass doors. Through them, a conference room with the lights off. But on the glass was a handprint, textured, rendered in 4K, as if it was the only thing the artists spent time on. The door opened automatically. Inside was a projector screen. It displayed a slideshow. No clicker, no controls, just slides, one after another, on a loop. Slide 1, a heat map of player movement in Old Town. Slide 2, a black and white photo of the real-life office building. Slide 3, a text slide, plain font, white on black. Testers are needed. Volunteers remain. Slide 4, a folder tree structure showing a path labeled DevRoot QA Memory Bin Dennis. I paused, slid my mouse over the folder name, and the projector shut off. Behind me, a new door had opened, one that hadn't been there before. It led to a stairwell, descending. Every flight had a name etched onto the wall. I passed one labeled Ridge, another mic egg, and a third that simply read Rejected. The walls began to lose their texture. The lights flickered out behind me as I moved down. When I reached the bottom, the stairs ended in a simple steel door, painted across it in block font. No patch will fix this. I clicked. It didn't open. Instead, the game froze, then crashed. The desktop returned, and waiting there was a new file. Dennis_tempbuild.bat. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I opened the install log for the last session. Scrolled through the entries. At the very end, one line stood out. Testing floor instantiated. User tagged T20. I wasn't 20, not according to anything they gave me. My badge said number 36, but the system said 20. That meant 19 before me. Some active, some inactive, some watching. I checked the clock. 6:57 p.m. Dusk. The game auto-launched. I didn't touch a thing. It opened in Old Town. Same place, same sky. Except now, there were people. NPCs filled the sidewalks, but none of them moved. They stood in place, facing different directions, eyes open. All of them had name tags. Tito1, D02, Tito03, up to TT19. No one spoke. No one reacted. Then the sky dimmed slightly, and a new tag appeared near the center of the street. Dennis, active. He stood at a payphone receiver to his ear. After a moment, the phone rang. Not in the game. In my real-world test lab, the line next to my monitor lit up and buzzed once. I stared at it. It rang again. A third time, I answered. Nothing. Just faint static. Then a voice, raspy, too close to the mic. Did you see it yet? Click, dead air. The game window updated. Dennis was gone. In his place, a flickering message across the bottom of the screen. Next room awaits. Compliance required. The only interaction prompt was, enter testing floor again, but deeper this time. I didn't click, I just watched. And slowly, the game window shrunk itself, then disappeared. The desktop returned. Only one icon remained. My recycling bin was gone. My folders all erased. Just one shortcut in the center. It read, "You're not done." The in-game time system broke the next morning, not in a crashy, bugged-out way. It just stopped obeying the rules. I loaded the game at 10:15 a.m. It was broad daylight in the main city, normal crowd density, traffic flow, everything running smoothly. Then, without warning, no transition, no fade, the sky darkened. Full nightfall in less than a second. Streetlights blinked on. The buildings cast long, distorted shadows across the asphalt. Pedestrians stopped walking. Cars rolled to a halt in the middle of intersections, and my controller began vibrating in a slow, rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat. I paused the game. The clock in the pause menu still read 10:17 a.m. But the sky was black, and somewhere in the background audio, I heard footsteps, not in-game, behind me. I turned. Empty office. Just the glow of the test rig and the faint hum of the HVAC. I unpaused and sprinted my character into a nearby alley to force a load zone reset. Instead, my phone rang. Not in real life, in-game. An incoming call from an unknown number. I answered. What I heard wasn't a voice, not at first, just static, then breathing, not ambient game breathing. This was recorded, human, wet and unsteady. Then a voice whispered, "Ben, stop testing it. Please, please stop." I froze. My real name wasn't in the game files. Nowhere. I checked. I made sure before signing the NDA. My profile in the dev build was generic. QAs are 36. That's it. No full name, no personal info, nothing. I muted my headset and tabbed out of the game. Immediately, the lights above me flickered. Twice. I stood up, looked at the other rigs on the floor. Empty. No one else had come in yet. The lights stabilized. I sat back down and tried to exit the game. Alt F4 didn't work. ESC didn't work. Even Task Manager threw an error when I tried to end the process, so I killed the power manually, pulled the tower plug. Hard shutdown. The hum stopped. Silence. For 5 seconds, then the monitor lit up again, on its own. The tower remained off, but the monitor displayed a black screen. In the center, a text prompt, user 36 voice logs denied. Then it blinked once and changed to, accessing backup, 2031. I yanked the monitor power cord too, waited a full minute before rebooting everything from a cold start. When the system came back online, I checked the build directory. Every folder was still there, except now a new file had appeared in the root, recording _2031_final.wav. It wasn't big, 36 seconds, no file icon preview, no waveform. I moved it to a USB and loaded it on a separate air-gapped laptop. Headphones in, I hit play. The audio began with a high-pitched whine, like magnetic tape being pulled wrong, then a faint voice, distant, barely above the static. A man, panicked, gasping between words. "If you found this, if you're hearing this, it means it's still pulling testers in. Don't open Old Town. Don't load the night cycle. It doesn't want to be unloaded. It wants more. It watches what works and overwrites what doesn't." There was a long pause, shuffling, breathing, then one last line, "Please, Don't let it finish the build. Click. End of file. I ran a spectrograph on the audio. There were artifacts embedded in the waveform. Every 3 seconds, a faint symbol, lines, corners, something resembling a room layout. I tried to clean them up, match them to known textures or tile patterns in the game. Closest match? The cubicle floor. My cubicle. Back in the main office, I ejected the USB and deleted the file from the laptop. Then I unplugged everything and left early. That night, I logged into my home desktop and tried to uninstall the build entirely. Went into Control Panel, clicked Uninstall. Progress bar ran for 2 seconds. Then the screen blinked, and the folder reappeared. Same size, same files. But now, every icon was grayed out. I right-clicked and selected Delete, another progress bar. This time, the deletion reached 100%, and then the folder popped back up a second later, fully restored, except now there was one extra file inside. You can't log off, Ben. I checked my task manager. No apps running, nothing suspicious in processes, but every time I tried to remove the build, it reinstalled itself. I used Revo uninstaller. It returned. I booted into safe mode. It returned. I nuked the registry entries. They regenerated. I called my contact at the contractor office, the guy who hired me, Rishi. Left a voicemail, emailed, texted, no reply. I checked the company's Slack. My user profile was still active, but now under my name it read, Working Old Town Stability Loop Assigned. I never accepted that ticket. I clicked into the task. It had one comment, timestamp 10 minutes prior. We keep testing until one stays. No author listed. Just a grayed out tag, system message. I restarted my computer in offline mode, opened the build folder, clicked properties. The last modified time, 4 minutes ago. While the system was off, I ran a file hash comparison against the backup copy on my USB. It didn't match, same size, same file names, but the hash was different. Something inside was rewriting itself. I opened the manifest.txt inside the install folder. It now read, Do not delete, do not terminate. You are the current instance. I turned off the PC, walked to the kitchen, stood there for a long time just listening. The fridge hummed. The apartment was quiet. Then the lamp flickered. Not much, just once, but enough. I looked back at the office. The monitor was on again. Same black screen. This time the message was different. Final compile requires 20, and below it, in smaller font, You are 20. I went to bed without touching anything else, laid in the dark, trying to reason with myself. Some rogue script. An ARG. Maybe even a company stress test. It had to be. It had to be. But the next morning when I came into the lab, there were 3 fewer workstations powered on. I asked around. No one knew where Eric, Tanya, or Sam were. Their names weren't even on the assignment roster anymore, as if they'd never existed. And yet when I passed Tanya's station, her coffee cup was still warm. The game was paused at the old town spawn point. Her character stood frozen in front of the testing floor sign, motionless, unblinking. I tapped the mouse. The character looked toward the camera, just a slight rotation. Then the model opened its mouth and said, You've already heard the message. The screen went black, and the desktop displayed one new file, do_not_run_final build.bat. I moved it, deleted it. It reappeared. Not on the desktop this time, but in my downloads folder, then in my documents, then in the cloud sync, each with a slightly different name. Do not run final build 1.bat. Do not run final build. Do not run final build 3.bat. Until finally, one appeared with a different extension entirely. Final build _autoload.vbs. When I clicked on it, just to inspect, the lights went out in the whole building for 5 seconds, then came back. Only my monitor stayed off. When I powered it manually, the display was back at the character select screen. But this time, there was only one choice. Ben, Current instance. No gender selector, no clothing options, no stats, just my name. I didn't select it, I just stared. Then the screen flashed once, and the character auto-loaded into Old Town. Standing alone, in front of the testing floor, where the glass doors were already open. And inside, Dennis was waiting. Dennis stood just past the threshold of the glass doors, beneath the words testing floor stenciled backward across the inside. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there waiting, half illuminated by the flickering ceiling lights that shouldn't have been casting shadows at all. My hands weren't on the keyboard. The game had auto-loaded directly into this moment. No objectives, no HUD, no minimap, just a click of my character's boots on the tile as he stepped forward, without input from me. Dennis finally spoke. "You've been here before." The voice wasn't modulated like the other NPCs. It sounded like a real voice, recorded in a room, close to the mic. Rough, human. I pressed escape. No menu appeared. The mouse didn't move the camera. I tried Alt F4. Nothing. I was locked in. Dennis turned slowly and walked into the office space beyond the lobby. My character followed on his own. I watched. Rows of cubicles stretched out ahead, low partitions, CRT monitors, cluttered desks, nearly identical to my own Q&A lab setup. It wasn't just reminiscent, it was accurate. The layout, the colors, even the chair I used, the exact same scratch in the fabric on the left armrest, was mirrored at the first desk we passed. Dennis weaved through the aisles like he knew where everything was. He stopped at a cube halfway down the second row and pointed. My character looked down. The nameplate read, Ben Hollis, Contract Q&A. There was a monitor glowing in the dark. It showed a paused image, a top-down camera angle of my real desk, complete with my keyboard, my water bottle, the crack in the back wall. It was live. I could see my own hand twitch slightly on screen. Dennis said nothing. He just turned and walked again. We passed more desks, some dark, others glowing with faint green light. The monitors were looping old GTA builds, San Andreas, GTA 4-5, blurry and corrupted. I saw one display a test map with no roads, just gray blocks and floating arrows. Another desk had post-it notes with scribbled usernames, R.Torres, DevTest03, Dennis G, Q&A 04 retired. At the end of the hallway, Dennis stopped beside a file cabinet. He opened the top drawer. My character stepped closer. The drawer held black envelopes, dozens, thick, matte finished, no markings except for Sharpie labels on the flaps. Names. Mine was one of them. Ben Hollis, final build. The envelope lifted on its own and disappeared off screen. The file drawer slammed shut. Dennis turned toward me slowly. It already has what it needs. Then he stepped backward into the wall. No clip, no transition, just vanished. His model didn't dissolve, it simply blinked out like a light. The office lights shut off one row at a time. My character turned, unprompted, and walked to a far wall where a door was now open, a stairwell down. No sound but footsteps. At the base of the stairs, another door, metal, rusted, marked Zone 8. The screen froze. Command prompt overlay blinked once. Access set granted Dennis NGG, Q8 override, and loaded into Part 9. Part 9, Under the City. The camera dropped low as the metal door opened, revealing a narrow concrete tunnel that sloped downward. The walls were unfinished, no texture maps, just a repeating gray tile that shimmered slightly as if corrupted. There was no music, no ambiance, not even the hum of Game World background audio. The silence was thick, oppressive. I pressed the keyboard. This time I had control. Ben, my character, walked slowly through the tunnel. The flashlight flicked on automatically, casting a weak cone of yellow ahead. The battery meter at the bottom flickered once and vanished. The deeper I went, the more unstable the environment became. The geometry flickered at the corners. Doorways blinked in and out. At one point, a ceiling above collapsed into darkness, then snapped back into place like a visual glitch. At the end of the corridor was another door, bigger, made of reinforced steel. It slid open before I could reach it. A loading screen pulsed briefly, then faded. I was standing in a massive underground chamber. Rows of cubicles stretched into the black like a clone of the testing floor, but larger, more industrial. Rusted pipes ran along the ceiling. Steam hissed from vents. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, but only some worked. And then I saw them. Dozens of NPCs. No, not NPCs. Testers. They walked in looping patterns between the cubicles. Each one moved like a scripted animation. Their heads stayed level. Eyes forward, no collisions, just walking in perfect, meaningless loops. Each had a name tag that pulsed faintly when I looked at them. K01 active, K02 inactive, K03 error, K04 attire retired. I tried to interact with one. My character lifted a hand, but there was no prompt. The model walked past me, never breaking the loop. I walked deeper. The animation started glitching. One tester's legs jittered too fast, like a frame skip. Another floated 2 inches off the floor. A voice echoed faintly, garbled, like an old voicemail played through static. We're not supposed to see it. I turned toward the sound. A doorway stood ajar in the back corner. My character squeezed through automatically. A narrow stairwell descended further, this time with signs lining the wall. Dev null zone 8, archive tester instances. Motion capture unlinked. Each floor felt colder. Even the lighting dimmed. At the bottom, the game stuttered. The character froze. The screen pulsed black, then returned. I stood in a windowless room. In the center, a glass-walled enclosure. Inside it, dozens of testers sat in chairs facing screens. Their animations were on loop, typing, nodding, pausing. Some leaned forward and stared directly into their monitors. Then one of them looked up. Not the character. Me. It was me, my model, my clothes, my hair. I was in the chair. The camera slowly pulled in. The Ben on the screen mouthed something. "You're next." The game froze. I tabbed out, tried to close it. Task Manager crashed. I yanked the power cord. The screen went black. When I restarted, everything was locked. No access to the game folder. Dev tools gone. The entire game directory grayed out. A pop-up appeared. Final build access revoked. Do not reattempt. But I knew I would, because on my desk a USB had appeared, unmarked, just sitting next to my mouse. I didn't plug it in, not at first. The USB drive sat next to my mouse like it had always been there. No label, no logo, just matte black plastic with a tiny red dot that blinked once when I touched it. I checked the windows, the door, my phone. Nothing had moved, nothing had changed. But the files on my workstation were locked down hard. Trying to open anything related to the build gave me the same message, access revoked. Emails wouldn't send. Even writing one caused the system to freeze, the mouse skipping in erratic jerks. Twice the monitor's blue screened the moment I clicked new message. Once the Outlook window opened and typed a single word by itself, don't. I tried opening a command line interface. The instant I typed dear to list the hidden game directories, the monitors flickered off. Not just flickered, they died. When they came back on, the desktop wallpaper had changed. It was a grainy photo of me, sitting in the dark, the glow of the screen lighting my face, mouth slightly open, dead center, like it had been taken seconds ago. I turned around, no camera, nothing. I checked the game folder again. It was growing, not in a metaphorical way. It literally increased in size every few minutes. I watched it climb. 235 gigabytes, 236.4, 238.7, 242.1. The subfolders were full of strings that made no sense. Denshimaru recordings, Cradle Loop, and Build Cache 2021 ghost frames. When I tried deleting them, the system laughed. A new folder appeared as soon as one was gone. Its name, You're still here. The USB blinked again. I gave in. Slotted it into the port. No autoplay. No file explorer window. Just a single notification. Install final release candidate. YN. My cursor refused to hover over the N. The mouse only tracked toward Y. I let go. The screen went black. Hard drive clicked. Fan slowed to a whisper. A line of white text faded in. Loading. Final_build_RC1.exe. No loading bar. No splash screen. The camera faded in from black. A dimly lit room. I was sitting at the desk. My desk. The camera was behind me, slowly pushing in. My head was down. Hands frozen on the keyboard. The monitor in the scene displayed a paused game screen, the exact one I was watching now. As the camera crept closer, the audio picked up faint room tone, but also the same clicking I'd heard in the build before. Not mouse clicks, not keyboard taps, wet, breathy movements, low scraping. The in-game camera circled to the front. My face was on screen. It wasn't a video. I blinked. I saw it. My screen showed my own face blinking. Then the screen inside that screen showed the same. An endless tunnel of recursive video feeds, my face blinking, moving, tracking. The camera finally stopped moving. My in-game self looked directly at me, at the viewer. His lips didn't move, but a voice came through the speakers, real and sharp. This is the final build. You can't leave now. The window closed on its own. No way to reopen it. The USB was dead now, nothing on it. The folder size kept climbing. I shut everything off, powered down the machine, pulled the plug. Next morning the machine was on again. Final build RC1.exe. Had a shortcut on my desktop. I hadn't made it. When I checked my system logs, it had been running for 7 hours overnight, but the machine had been unplugged. I haven't tested any other build since. I haven't been back to the office. The shortcut is still there. Sometimes it blinks, like it's waiting, like it knows I will.